In the quiet folds of Victorian England, between the polished cobblestones and the flickering gas lamps, there existed a profession most people admired, yet almost no one truly understood. The milliners, the hat makers, makers of elegance, fashion, and status, men and women whose work crowned the heads of society's finest, from wealthy merchants to noble families, from travelers to queens. A beautiful hat meant everything. But behind that beauty was a silent poison, one that crept through their fingers, their lungs, and eventually their minds. This is the story of the Mad Hatter's Plague, a tale of Mercury, madness, and the forgotten workers who paid the ultimate price for elegance. Take a slow breath, settle into the quiet, and let me guide you into the shadowed workshops where it all began. The world of the Victorian hatmaker was not glamorous. Far from the noisy streets and bustling markets, milliners often worked in dim rooms, lit only by a small window or a single oil lamp. The air was warm and humid, smelling faintly of wet fur, steam, and something metallic. A scent many described as sharp, strange, almost sweet. They worked with rabbit fur, hair pelts, and beaver skins, materials prized for their softness and durability. To shape these pelts into felt, workers brushed them with a glowing chemical mixture, a mixture that shimmered like liquid silver, a mixture that looked harmless, a mixture that ruined lives. Mercury nitrate. No one knew, at first, what it truly did. They only knew it made the fibers fuse perfectly. It made the felt strong, smooth, and luxurious. And so the hat industry demanded more and more of it. Every day, the milliners dipped, brushed, stretched, and steamed the mercury-treated fur. And every day, they inhaled invisible vapors rising from the heat. The symptoms begin. At first, nothing seemed wrong. Perhaps a trembling in the hands, a slight shaking. Especially in the morning, easily dismissed. Just tired, they would say. Just overworked. But the trembling grew worse. Then came irritability, sudden outbursts of emotion, mood swings that frightened even the calmest workers. The Victorians had a word for it: Mad Hatter Syndrome. Because the hat makers weren't just sick, they were losing their grip on reality. Some would laugh at things that weren't funny. Some would cry without reason. Some felt their hearts racing at night, as if chased by something unseen. And some began muttering, asking questions that made no sense, or avoiding mirrors because they swore someone else was staring back. But everyone kept working, because they had families, because the pay was needed, because no one believed that something as beautiful as a hat could carry such darkness. The towns that danced with Mercury. There were entire towns shaped by this industry. Danbury, Connecticut, became known as the hat capital of the world. Workers shortened the name to something grimer, Mercury City. In those towns, people had seen the symptoms so often that they thought it was normal. Old milliners with shaking hands were simply called tremblers. Young apprentices were teased for their sudden bursts of anger or nervous laughter. It became part of the culture, part of the identity, part of the cost of survival. Doctors tried to help, but they didn't fully understand mercury poisoning. Some said it was exhaustion. Some blamed alcohol. Some blamed the stress of the job. No one blamed the chemical that shimmered on every brush, every table, every glove. Descent into madness. As the years went by, the symptoms grew darker. Some workers experienced hallucinations, patterns on the walls that moved and twisted, faces appearing in steam, whispers echoing in quiet rooms. Others developed violent tremors, so severe they could no longer hold tools. Some walked with a strange swaying motion, as if the ground were constantly shifting beneath them. And many simply disappeared from the workshops, sent home to rest, only for their minds to unravel completely in the quiet of their bedrooms. Mercury does not leave the body easily. It clings to the nerves, the brain, the bloodstream. A worker could leave the trade, change jobs, even move towns, but the damage was already done. Their stories were whispered, behind closed doors, spoken softly in markets and pubs. He used to be such a clever man. She was always so kind before it started. He hasn't been the same. Since the shop, Victorian society admired the elegance of fashion, but ignored the people who died creating it. The slow realization. It took decades for doctors to finally connect the dots. Reports came from across England, France, and America, all describing the same symptoms, all from hat makers, tremors, anxiety, hallucinations, memory loss, personality changes, madness. Mercury was poisoning them, silently, relentlessly, and it had been doing so for more than a century. By the time the truth emerged, entire generations of milliners had already vanished into hospital wards, asylums, and early graves. Yet the industry continued. Some reforms were introduced: better ventilation, protective gloves, stricter rules, but many factories ignored them in the pursuit of profit. A cheaper hat was worth more than a human life. The slow end of the plague. It wasn't until the early 20th century that mercury was finally banned from hat making in many countries. By then, countless milliners had already suffered. The Mad Hatter had become a cultural symbol, a curious character in literature, a strange figure in stories. But the real milliners, the men and women behind the myth, were forgotten. Their lives, their struggles, and their pain faded into history. Tonight, we remember them. As you rest now, let the story drift slowly into silence. Imagine the sound of a quiet Victorian workshop, the gentle brushing of felt, the soft hiss of steam, the distant echo of rain against old windows. Let the tension leave your shoulders. Let your breath slow and soften. Let the world grow distant and warm. You are safe, you are calm, and nothing from this story can follow you. Just allow the ambience to take over as you drift gently into sleep.